Hello and welcome back to another Theory Thursday. Today we are looking at a concept that is unique to stringed instruments, and that is harmonics. What are they? How do you use them on guitar? And how do you use them to tune? That's what we're looking at today. As always, if you've been enjoying the tunes, the theory videos, the just the music videos, all that stuff, a like and subscribe is always appreciated, but not necessary. Today I've got my Casio F108 on, also known as the Illuminator, kind of like a cheaper G-Shock. Anyway, no tie on, all black today. So that's what we got going on. I think that's it. So without further ado, harmonics. Let's go. Okay, first I'm going to explain harmonics, and then it'll be even easier just to show you what's going on with the guitar. So I'll grab my guitar and you can hear it. So first of all, sound comes to us in waves, just like, any wave. When you pluck a string on guitar, the string is a wave, and it becomes that sound wave. So it's hard to see, but it is just a wobbly wave. That string is, there's no other way to put it. It's a wave. So harmonics come into play when you cut that wave at different fractions along its length. Because in guitar, you have two fixed points and the string in between. And when you pluck it, these two ends don't move at all. And the string creates that wave in between them. So we have a set length here, and it differs from guitar to guitar. I know there's a certain length that Fender uses. There's a certain length that Gibson uses, and we call that the scale length. So that's from the nut where the string makes contact with the nut to where the string makes contact at the saddle or the bridge. Okay, so that's the scale length. So cutting that wave string at different fractions along the length. And we're not talking about just pressing down on a fret. Okay, that would be taking the length and cutting it in half. We're talking about just taking the string and cutting it in half. We're talking about taking the wave and cutting it in half, or whatever fraction it is. Okay, so we're not pressing down onto the fretboard. We're just touching the string at certain fractions. Okay, that's the difference between cutting the string and cutting the wave. Okay, and this all makes sense once you hear it. So, common ones on guitar, actually any stringed instruments, but it's easy to see in guitar because we have our frets that lay everything out on a grid. So, first of all, the 12th fret on any guitar made for Western music, the 12th fret is the halfway point between the nut and the bridge. Okay, that's the halfway mark of your string. And if you cut the wave right there, it's gonna jump the pitch up one octave. Okay, so what you're doing is you're taking the wave and you're cutting it in half. And what that does is it creates the pitch an octave higher. Okay, the next easy one is at instead of 1/2, it's going to be 1/3, and you can do that on the 7th fret. And what that does is bumps up your pitch an octave and a fifth. Okay, so that would be like from an E4 to a B5, right? E4 to E5 would be 1 octave, and then you add a fifth up to B. Okay, so that's at the 7th fret. And then even higher, you do a 4th, cut it in fourths at the 5th fret. And what that does is bump up your note 2 octaves. So like from an E4 to an E6 would be 2 octaves. Okay, so you can create harmonics by cutting the wave at certain lengths, and you can do it in more spots than just these 3 fractions, but these are the 3 easiest to achieve on guitar. Okay, so I'll grab my guitar and you can hear it for yourself. Okay, I've got my guitar here. So just first off the bat, you can hear what harmonics sound like. Here's a regular string, and here's a harmonic. So it's almost like a chime or a bell, right? Here would be that same note pressing down on the fretboard, and here it is as a harmonic. Excuse me. It's almost more of a pure sound. It does really remind me of a chime or a bell. So, that's at the 12th fret. Here's the 7th and the 5th. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm not pressing down on the fretboard. I'm just touching the string. Just touching the string. As opposed to... Okay, so you can hear that pitch jump up high. Okay, so let's go over these fractions one more time. So like I said, the 12th fret is exactly halfway between the nut and the bridge for your string. So as the string is doing its wave thing, once you pluck it, right, you can cut that in half by touching the 12th fret. And you can hear it jumps up 1 octave. Right, 1 octave. Okay, now let's do a 4th, just because that would be 2 octaves at the 5th fret. So instead of going up 1 octave, we're going to go up 2. Boom. Right, so let's go 1. Okay, so there's your bass note, your 1 octave up, and then your 2nd octave up. All E notes, just separate octaves apart. Okay, so that's kind of the cool part. And here's the an octave and a 5th. So that would be your B. E. Here's 1 octave up, octave and a 5th, and 2 octaves. Okay, so what that gives you is a lot more options to play with. Okay, so that's the basics of harmonics and why they work the way they work. It's all waves and fractions, really. One cool thing you can do with this is actually tune your guitar. If you can get your low E string to be in tune, then you can tune the rest of your guitar using harmonics. Or even if your E string isn't in tune, you can tune the rest of the guitar relative to wherever your E string is. So, for example, I know this is my low E. I've already tuned it. So, and let's take my A string out of tune. Okay, so it's flat now. Right, that sounds bad. So, let's tune with harmonics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the E string. I'm going to go to the 5th fret. So that's going to give me an octave or an E note 2 octaves up, okay? That's my note. Okay, now I'm going to go to the A string and go to the 7th fret. And what's that going to give me is an octave and a 5th, which for an A string, that'd be A is 1 octave, and then the 5th would be to E. All right, so we're going to have an E and an E. It's the same note. So that's what's cool about the harmonics. So these have to be in unison, and if they're not, you're out of tune. So check this out. Okay, you can hear that clash. And then we're back in tune. Okay? And you can do that for the next string as well, A to D. You can do it for D to G. When you get to the B string, that's where it gets tricky, because that interval, G to B, is a third. It's not fourths like the rest of the strings here. So what I do is I just play I go to the low E string, and I go to the 7th fret, because that gives me a B, right? An octave up, and then a 5th is a B from E. And then I go to the 12th fret for the B string, because that should give me a B. Right, they're an octave or two apart, but they're still B. So you can at least, you'll be able to hear it if it's not in tune. So for example, you can tell that's not right. And there you go. And then for your high E string, you can go from B to E. Those are really hard for me to hear, so I usually just go 12th fret low E, 12th fret high E. And that's how I do those harmonics. Okay, so that's how you would tune. The last thing I'll say here about harmonics is you can also do something called artificial harmonics. So what we're using here is the full length of the string and cutting the wave at certain fractions, using this full length. What you're doing when you're putting a finger down on the fretboard is you're shortening the length of the string. So instead of the bridge and the nut being the length of the string, it's going to be the bridge and wherever your finger is, right? So if I play a G note, it's because I'm shortening this string up to the 3rd fret, and now the string is only this long. Okay, so what you can do, and what that means is if you go up 12 frets, that's your new halfway point, which means you can get this harmonic an octave up. Okay, so you can have a lot of fun with this. You're just changing where the halfway mark is on the string. And you can go, you can just keep going. If I went up to the 7th fret, right, that's your note. There's your harmonic. 12 frets up. Okay, so you can play full chords. All harmonics, all chimey and bells, and it's really pretty. I'm not very good at it, but so those are artificial harmonics, as you're changing the length of the string with your fingers over here. So you have to find out where the halfway point is up here. Anyway, I think that's enough information for today. That's all about harmonics, and hopefully you learned something. We'll see you for the next one.